Good morning. How are you? We're so excited that you joined this conference. It's like one of a kind. Top awesome. Julie is just a fabulous, fabulous resource for mothers. So, anyway, we're talking about how do you choose curriculum? How do you make it work for you? This is my workshop. I'm Devin Vasco, and it's awesome to be here with you. So, anyway, first things first, you have to relax. You have to know that regardless of what you do, you're going to be doing the good things, the good choices. You love your family, you love your children, you're doing awesome. So relax. Remember that you don't have to know everything today. It's okay to not know everything. No one knows everything, right? So anyway, so you're going to take one day at a time, one step at a time, because one of the beauties of homeschooling is that mama can learn too. And it's a trial and error. We're teaching our children by our example that it's okay to not know everything, that it's okay to not have all the answers, and that we can move forward. So we have lots of information to cover, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and find some benefit of it. And we'll get through there, right? So okay, next slide. Okay, so we're going to talk about what should your child learn. You can find these things by Googling. Google is like one of the most awesome resources. I have a little bit of a crush on Google. So anyway, so the main word is scope and sequence. You're going to Google scope and sequence, and you can add in the grade, your state. You can even be even more detailed and put in your zone for school, or a school system you like in your state or some other state, although I don't know how useful that might be. If you're planning to put them back in public school, this is very useful because then you'll know what they're covering during the year that you're homeschooling. You can also look at your private school if you're planning to put them back in private school and find what the school will cover. If they don't have it on the website, you can always call and ask. They should be able to have that available for you. Another thing to look for is World Book Typical Course of Study. It's the one that I like. And then another one is Scholastic's, wait, I have my notes here. Scholastic's The Guide to First Grade, or you can change the first grade to fourth grade, sixth grade, eighth grade, whatever, and then it has a list. There's also a book called The Yardstick. It goes from age 4 to 14, and it's one that I keep on my shelf. So that's where you look to see what they're covering for the year. Is that always important? No. Some states in the U.S. do not have any guidelines for homeschoolers. Other states do. It just depends on where you are. It's useful to know where to find it. Let's go to the next slide. So there are 7 learning styles that all children use some form. Usually it's a mix. It's not usually ever just one. You've heard these before probably, but we're going to go over them really quickly so that they're fresh in your mind. Keep in mind that as your children age, as they get older, that these can kind of move back and forth. I like to use curriculum that includes multiple parts of this, because then they're getting the information in multiple ways. Let's see. Okay, so we have visual, which is, looking, watching videos, images, seeing pictures. I think we're all very visual learners to some degree. I think children, especially when they're very, very little, they're looking for clues and watching what we do. So they're very visual learners. There's auditory, where we hear things, we like to hear, repeat. We learn language this way. Especially when we're little, we're watching for cues we know when our parents talk, we're listening. Physical, all kids are very physical. They're touching, feeling, getting into things, being active. My son was very, very, very busy. Still is. He does very well with traditional style learning, but then he will do physical stuff between classes. So there is logical, which is logic and reasoning, and probably asking a lot of why. I have one like this. She's very, very logical, very methodical. Probably my bright and gifted kid. I've never tested her, but you never know. Then there's social. Some kids learn best in social situations. Some don't. Some are solitary. My logical one is very solitary. She prefers to be on her own. She doesn't really like to learn in a group. So these are the things that you keep in mind when you're choosing curriculum. There are resources, but we're going to do that in the next slide and go over that, and that'll be just a minute. There's places you can go to find more information to learn. So let's go to that. Okay, so we have some resources on learning styles. There's the big What Now Book of Learning Styles by Carol Barnier. Discover Your Child's Learning Styles by Willis and Hudson, and The Way They Learn by Cynthia Tobias. These are some awesome books to have on your shelf through the years. It's something I keep on my shelf when I help parents and when I consult. And they're easy to find on Amazon. They are older books. Eventually I might update this list, but right now these are my tried and true ones. So I'll have a PDF for you to pull that down so you can have all the resources from today. But that's what we have for learning styles. Okay, so the next thing is teaching styles. This is the most fun part of curriculum for homeschool mamas, is figuring out your teaching styles. What I mean by this is there are different philosophies of teaching. Even in the educational world, in public school, private school, there are philosophies of teaching. You'll probably see it more in a private school setting than a public school setting, but it's still there. We have none, and some are very, very popular in the homeschool world. Some are not as popular, and so we're going to go through some of these today. One is classical. Classical has been around for a really long time. It's like 3 sections. It's called the Trivium. It's like you'll start with the littles, like elementary school, and they're quoting facts. Then they move into a discussion type. I may be doing it wrong. If you're a classical nerd, forgive me. It's not the one I use. But then you have that section, and then you have the next section, like high school, where they're almost like debating and backing up what they started. So it's like you're repeating information with each one, but going deeper each level. Very, very well done. Been around for years. Very popular. I started off with it, but we didn't stick there because I have 5 kids. In case you don't know, I have 5. That's a whole nother story. Sorry. Then we have Montessori, which is very gentle, very easygoing, wonderful. I have not seen it too much into the high school years, but very awesome learning. It is based as a philosophy. I believe her last name is Montessori, but the first one I can't remember right now. Those two, classical is very popular. Montessori, not quite so much. Charlotte Mason is another huge one in the homeschooling community. You will be able to find it. You'll usually see it classical, or you're going to see Charlotte Mason. Those are going to be the 2 main ones you see. Charlotte Mason is very, very popular, works very well with multiple children. It's the one that I've used for many years. Another one is called Unschooling. Don't let it scare you, because it's not lack of schooling. Some people will call it child-led education. Some people will call it family-based education. I have a lot of respect for it. Really, really do like it. I don't think I'm there yet. I have friends who call me a closet unschooler. I think I'm very relaxed with this, but I find very big value in it because it's something that I have seen my husband use in building our house. Then there's traditional. This is going to be similar to what you're used to in public school, private school. There are curriculums like this. There's nothing wrong with them. If it works for your child, I have one child that really, really thrived with traditional. Then there's Waldorf, which is to me, is similar to Montessori, but not exactly. It's lots of handicrafts, knitting, felting, things, textiles, very, very nice, but not as popular. Then unit studies is another big one that you'll see a lot, but I feel like it also kind of goes into traditional. They're very similar. Then Reggiano Emilia, never met anybody who does this one. I found one Facebook group, but that's about it. Then there's eclectic, which is me. I'm kind of eclectic. You'll see that a lot of homeschool moms who have been around for a while probably tend to lean to this because you start trying different things out and you find what works for your family and you find that bits and pieces work. And that's the thing. You don't have to stick to any one kind or any one box set. You could find what works for your family. So anyway, I have some resources for you, but that's the next slide. Okay, so we're on resources for teaching styles. This was a lot of fun to find. I could not find something for all of them, but I found some interesting ones for you. There is classical, which is the well-trained mind. This is the one I found at the library way back in the day when I was starting kindergarten with my oldest. We've homeschooled 17 years. He was 2 when I started, and at kindergarten we decided to continue and not put him in public school. And this is the book I found. It's where I started. I love it because it's a big book. You have one. There's like a section for every year, and it has resources for that section. So math and language arts, and it just goes through everything. And it's a nice little thing that you can keep on your shelf and have suggestions on what to use. Then for Montessori, we have Montessori homeschooling, One Family's Story, and I have here, the mom. Then there's Charlotte Mason. She has tons and tons of things out there. You can actually find them probably free at your library on your e-resources. If you go in your library, they may have books that you can download. There's lots of information out there and things that she wrote. That's probably why she's one of the most popular. Things that her followers have wrote, people who have continued her style, and you can find that just by Googling her name at your library on the e-resources and in Amazon. Then there's Unschooling. This is by Carla Williams. It's called Homeschooling Gone Wild. She is really an awesome mom. She has a page called Carla and the Sensational Six. Lots of resources. She has a very strong YouTube channel, so you can really find some good information on unschooling. Then for Waldorf, we have the Waldorf Homeschool Handbook. It's on Amazon. You can find that. So that's some of the stuff that I found. Some of them I could not really find good resources. I'm hoping that will change and we'll have some stuff later. So there's some for you to find for later. Okay, so we're going to come to assessment and testing. Now this goes back to your state laws or your country laws. You need to be aware of what your state requires. Some will not have any. My state does not have any required testing or required subjects, but others do, and it is very important that you know what your laws are. You can go to Homeschool Legal Defense. They usually have a pretty good handle. But where do you find these if you need these? Okay, first, standardized testing may or may not need a certified proctor. There are some places that you can get where you can actually do it online and do it at home now. Bob Jones University is one of those. That is a new thing that's come with the virus that should not be named. It is a new world. So anyway, I have a link here for on the slide for you to find a list of standardized testing. There are ones that you can do called like Iowa. You can do that yourself. That's on Bob Jones University. SATs, we're familiar, usually needs a proctor where you've set up for several days. That's just something you'll have to figure out. If you just want an assessment and not standardized test, one that I like is Let's Go Learn. They have math and reading. It's the one I use with my children. It's online. It's only about $25. Then when you go to pick curriculum, they have something called a placement test, at least in the math and the language arts. That's just seeing where your child is in the material. Anytime you change curriculum, you're probably going to see that with math and language arts. That's usual. If you put them back in public school or private school, you may have to take a placement test. It's not a pass or fail test. It's just seeing where they fit inside of the curriculum. As long as your children's math and their language arts are very strong, you should be fine with placement test. I wouldn't worry too much. But I wanted to give you those resources in case you need them. It's helpful. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to narrow it all down. There's some questions you can ask yourself to make it easier to choose curriculum. So it's not so overwhelming, because when you just type in Google homeschool curriculum, you're going to get a ton. You're going to get the ones that have paid for advertising. You're going to get just tons and tons and tons. So we want to narrow it down. Here's some questions to ask yourself. One, do you want secular or faith-based? That will smooth things. That's usually the main thing people want to know when they start looking. So when you ask yourself that, it scoots it. You have two sections now. Then, so you pick whichever one you want. Either one's fine. No right, no wrong. Everybody's different. Then you look at this and you're going to pick do you want online or offline? That's going to make two sections, whether, and then you have only a fourth of that curriculum. I will suggest that if you have small children, like I have a kindergartner this year, I have 5 total. Littles do not need to be, their main source of curriculum does not need to be online. Now I know sometimes that's what's going to work, but I suggest to have some type of physical curriculum just so that you can make sure they're not missing holes. It's very easy for littles to have holes because they don't know how to communicate there's a problem. They're little. So you have that back and forth and you can actually see. So I prefer to have something physical curriculum with littles. Another thing to ask yourself is, what is my child's learning style? If you have more than one child, they may not have the same learning styles. You're going to look for one that has several different things overlapping. Online will usually have the audio and the visual and a little bit of the traditional, because they may have workbooks. So there are ways you can combine that to have everything together. Another one to ask yourself what your budget is. What do you want to pay? What can you afford to pay? But the one question that most mothers forget to ask themselves, is it going to work for you? You are the teacher. Curriculum is only a tool. It is not your master. You can make whatever you have work for you. You're the one in charge, and it has to work. So if you're working a 9-to-5 job outside your home, you may need an online curriculum. So whatever the other ones say, throw what doesn't work for you. Now, does that mean that we're looking for a unicorn for curriculum? Sometimes it'll feel that way. I wish I could sit down and give you, oh, you're doing this, do this. But really, for every family, what you choose is going to work differently for every family. It's a tool. Always remember that. Remember that you're not caught. You can sell it on a resale site and try something new. There's free out there. There's stuff to fit every budget. I usually steer parents toward the free first, because if it works, then great. It works. You found something that works for anybody's budget. And then there's ones that are like $1,000 a year. I could never afford that, but it doesn't mean that you can't. So every parent has to make the best decisions. And my questions really kind of narrow that down and help. But anyway, so I gotta move to the next slide. Okay, again, sometimes it takes time. You won't have all the answers today. Remember in the beginning I said that you don't have to have all the answers today? Relax, deep breath. The beauty of homeschooling is that mama can learn too, and this is just one thing that we will learn together as mothers. We will grow together. Remember that your curriculum is a tool. It's for you to use, not for it to use you. If it is wearing you out, stressing you out, throw it out and find what works. Also remember that everything is trial and error. You will find the correct steps to take. Give yourself lots and lots of grace, because, we give our children grace. Mamas are really bad about not giving themselves grace. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Let's see. Oh, it's okay. I'm looking at my notes. okay to change everything. You're good. So give yourself grace today. Give yourself grace to learn. Relax. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your children, because what a wonderful little moment of time for you to connect. And that's what it's all about. We want, as mothers, we want to connect with our children to connect with us, so that we have a good relationship. We want to grow happy, healthy, well-adjusted children, and we want them to have a good life. And you can do it, Mama. I believe in you. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful journey. So anyway, I'm Devin. It was a wonderful, wonderful pleasure to spend this morning with you, or afternoon, or evening, or whatever time you're watching this video. And I truly hope the best for your journey. Have a wonderful time with the conference.